Okay, Letitia, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so thrilled to have you, and I'm just so excited to hear about your journey because you have a bit of a unique background in terms of having sort of worked in a different area. You have a degree in a completely different area and then found yourself in dietetics. Can you tell
Mhm.
us a little bit about your journey and how it brought you to this point?
To this point, yeah. So, I am a nurse. I've been a nurse for over 15 years now, and I worked mostly long-term care skilled units for about a decade. And I think, like a lot of people who get into health and wellness field, my own health journey started pulling me into a different direction. I went on a personal health journey, and then some things kind of went sideways, and I realized the diagnosis I got earlier in my 20s was really impacting me in my 30s, and it was polycystic ovary syndrome. And so I was starting to hit dead end after dead end with my providers, and I just had to take my health into my own hands. And whenever I started doing that, I just noticed there's a lot of women like me who aren't getting the answers that they need or aren't being educated on their health conditions. And people were already asking for me to help them because they saw what I was doing for myself. And so I left nursing for health coaching. I started my health coaching business. I got certified in health coaching and I loved it and things were going great. But coming from the medical field and having that background where every move I made on a daily basis, you were questioning, okay, will this hold up in court? What is my scope of practice? You had a code of ethics, and then now I'm in this field of, I call it the Wild West of nutrition because it felt really uncomfortable to me. I didn't know for sure, was what I was doing legal. If someone were to, have grievances with me and we went to court, would this hold up? Like, what are my legalities? And I was really starting to lean into working and helping people with PCOS. I started PCOS advocacy and was going to conferences and events. And I met and networked with a lot of amazing dietitians that were in the PCOS space. And I just came home from an event one time and said, hey, I'm going to go back to school to become a dietitian because I knew deep down if I wanted the career that I was wanting and wanted to help people in the way that I want to help, I need to get more education and get the credentials that will allow me to help them in a safe way, safe for me and for them as well. So I went back to school, and now I am finishing up. I'm almost into my last semester of grad school and sort of in the middle of my internship. And hopefully next summer I will be a dietitian finally, a registered dietitian finally. But yeah, it's been a long process and a long journey for sure.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I mean, like, what amazing self-awareness to be like, okay, I really feel so strongly about helping this population group, but I know I want to show up in a certain way. And I know I want to like have the confidence to show up in that way. So that's so amazing for you. First of all, I just really love that story. What's it been like to go back and did you have to do another undergrad degree?
Yeah, so I am a licensed practical nurse, and
Yeah.
so that was it's a diploma. You still do an NCLEX, you still take a
Hmm.
license exam, but it's not quite as intense. You don't have to have a degree like a registered nurse. And I recalled there was at least twice in my nursing career I kept trying to go back to get my RN degree, and I just could not do it. And now I just know that the universe had a different plan because as soon
Mm.
as I went on the dietetic path, I've not let up.
Yeah.
But so I had some prerequisites, but I still had to finish. And I feel like anatomy and physiology was something I've taken several times. I'm also, before I went to nursing school, I got a diploma and certified as a surgical technologist. I just
Oh,
don't live in
wow.
an area. I didn't think about it. I was really young. I was right out of high school. I didn't think about, oh, you probably need to live somewhere where there's an operating room to be a
Oh,
surgical
interesting.
technologist.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
love that field. It's such a fascinating field. But so I took anatomy and physiology for that. I took A&P in nursing school. And then here I am taking it again. But, like that self awareness you mentioned, I credit that to my background in nursing
Mm,
because I had that lived experience with a scope of practice and understanding, the legalities in medical and health related fields. And it definitely helped me get like with some of the sciences, not necessarily organic chemistry per se.
mm.
It didn't
Oh,
help me
tell me
there.
about it.
But like learning food, medication, complications, things like that. And
Yeah.
when we got into diabetes, MNT, like that was so even like parenteral nutrition was so helpful for me to have that background because I have been in the position where I've replaced tubes before. I've hung tube feeding for, a decade.
Hmm.
So I was familiar with a lot of the things where some people that are brand new to maybe even the healthcare field aren't exposed to that until they get into their internship.
Mm, hmm. Yeah. So let's talk about the beginning of Endocrine Collective. What did it look like when you first started? Like, what were the first few steps that you took in order to get it off the ground?
To get it off the ground. So, Endocrine Collective is what I have built up getting ready for a private practice as a dietitian. When I first started, like leaving nursing and going like as a health coach and running a business, which I had no clue what I was doing. I was under a different name at the time. And the first thing was that I recall us doing was I just established an LLC
Mm,
and got my name and made sure that nobody else in my area had that name and that I could use that name. And at the time, I had already built up a fairly large audience on social media. And so I was able to take that audience and kind of turn that into my audience as far as like clients and leads. But there was a little bit of a wonky transition of I'm sharing my personal life, my personal health journey with you, and now I am trying to be a professional in this space, be
mm,
respected as a professional. I guess maybe proving, I felt like I had to prove my worth a lot of like, okay, like I can help you too, and things like that. I'm sure everyone kind of goes through that. That's how I really felt like the beginning of it. It was using social media, using the audience that I'd already built through my own personal health journey, and then getting that LLC. And then I've made a lot of mistakes over the last like 5 or so years. I'm still learning every day on the business end.
mm. I think we all are, right? It's
Yeah,
just like one big science experiment of trying to figure
yeah,
out what works and
yeah,
what doesn't work.
yes.
So at the very beginning, when you were talking about, so it sounds like you sort of started just posting about your own personal health experience. What was that like? Like, how did you know what to talk about, what to post about? And I guess, did that feel, was that scary for you? Or were you like, yeah, no, I just feel
Oh,
so good about this?
no, I was terrified.
Mm,
I started after I had my youngest son. He's 10, so this is like it's been a while. And
yeah.
I remember, I finally arrived at the point in my life where I was done trying all the quick fixes and the fads, and I knew that I just needed to dig my heels in and change my lifestyle. And nothing had ever worked for me in the past. And for some reason, I thought I had no idea how to use Instagram. I really didn't even understand it, like what it was about. I had it on my phone, but I only used it for the filters.
Mm,
And like I don't even think that I knew that once you post the photo, other people could see it. But so I remember thinking to myself, every time I go for a walk or fix a healthy meal, I'm just going to take a photo and post it. So it just feels like it's out in the world, like somebody's watching and it's just holding me accountable. And I think I
oh,
had like 11 people following me. It was probably people that just connected their contacts to the app and, whatever. So I really shared, it started out as a weight loss journey and I lost 100 pounds. And so it was just really like every time I cooked, I posted. When I worked out, I posted. At that point in time, I was definitely posting like before and afters and flashback Fridays and transformation Tuesdays. Like I was so like the claws of the Fitspo space on Instagram. I was in it to win it. I was definitely in there. And then after I lost 100 pounds, I had skin removal surgery. I had 3 pounds of excess skin removed. And that's when I really started dealing with opinions of other people. I had a
Mm,
lot of people share what they thought about me and my body and the decisions and how my body looked before. And that was really hard. And then I decided I wanted to be a bodybuilder.
mm.
And so I got into bodybuilding, and that's probably when my account took off the most because
Oh,
I
okay.
started having this physique that's really palatable to look at for the first time in my life. And a lot of people really were drawn to that. And then it was after bodybuilding when my health declined. And that's when I really started transitioning from physique appearance focus to health focus and going into health coaching and trying to become more of a, I guess, authoritative figure in this space. And so there was just a lot of disconnect, I think, over the time. It was really scary. I was terrified in the very beginning, and then there were definitely moments where I felt like I was being cyberbullied in a way that I felt like I couldn't even show up. And so there was definitely a time where my accounts grew large enough to where every day was a hard day on social
Oh,
media.
wow.
And so I just took a solid half a year where I just left everything, like just left all social media platforms. I even had a podcast at the time. I pulled it off. Like I wanted to disappear. I just wanted to be
Mm,
off of social media. And so I really took those 6 months to reflect and even like made sure, hey, do you still want to be a dietitian? Do you still want to work in this space? Is this the career that you want? And I realized, yes, like deep, like, yes, this is where my heart is at. I know that there are a lot of people who need help, and I want to be able to move the needle for people like that. And so coming back to social media and knowing that I needed a voice online and that people who really need to hear what I have to say are there, I really approach social media very differently than I had in the past, like 5 to 10 years. I'm very more mindful about how my mental health is around it and how I approach my content and really try to only speak to the people that I'm trying to reach and not trying to reach everyone, if that makes sense.
mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Okay, first of all, thank you for sharing that. That is just, wow, such an incredible journey. But at the same time, sounds like it was so incredibly difficult, like so
Mhm.
difficult. So did you actually shut down your old accounts and then start fresh? Or is like the account that you have right now, like from it's the same
Yeah,
one that
that's a
you've had?
that's a good question. So, TikTok was the platform that I had the most followers
Oh,
on,
okay.
like 250K. And what I did with
Wow.
that is the name that I had at the time, I didn't want someone else to have it because I would like if you Googled my name, Letitia, you would see that username. And so I was really nervous someone else would get it, and I didn't want not necessarily a personation, but I just wanted to make sure that I kept my presence. So I just deactivated it so that I could keep the name and no one else
Yeah.
could take it. And I believe I did the same thing on Instagram. And then the ironic thing was whenever I finally said, okay, I think I'm ready to come back, my personal Facebook account was hacked.
Mm.
And at first, I didn't think anything about it. I thought, okay, I don't even enjoy really being on Facebook. Usually, your personal Facebook is like local, and it wasn't really helping my business. So I was completely okay with just, calling it quits. until I realized that my Instagram, which is what I like to call that home base, that's where I feel the most comfortable. That's where I connect with people the most. I believe that's how we connected. Like
Hmm.
they're like Instagram is home to me, and that's the one. Like if I had to just choose one, that's where I will be. It was connected to Meta
Mm.
and commerce. And so now I couldn't get into, I could still access my Instagram and I could keep running that Instagram that I built up. I think I was at 38,000 followers at the time, but I would never be able to run ads in the future if I wanted to. And there was just a lot of little things that I just wasn't for sure about when I looked at having a private practice in the future. I just felt like it would hinder me. And I hired a few people to help me, and everyone just kind of came to the same conclusion, like you're probably better off starting fresh. And so I had a great dietitian mentor at the time who knew all the history that I'm sharing with you. And she said, why don't you just go ahead and name your private practice and just start off? She said,
Mm.
while you're, finishing school and in your internship, you can go ahead and start creating your audience and start blogging, like do whatever feels good, but just go ahead and get your private practice name established. And so that's really where Endocrine Collective came about. And so the Endocrine Collective that you see on Instagram, that's a brand new account. I had to start all the way at the bottom again, which is
Wow.
humbling, but also kind of nice because when you're smaller, you don't have near as much of the negativity yet.
Mm.
So maybe in some way that was really protective and needed for me to have another small account again. And, I do get to build it with a lot more intention than maybe my
Mm.
other account that was partially my personal journey that turned business and everything else. So I feel pretty good about where I'm at now, but that was a really hard transition. And it also taught me, hey, social media is fickle. We could wake up tomorrow and our accounts could be gone. And
Mm.
so, looking at becoming a private practice dietitian, I've really looked at marketing differently too, because I don't want to, I guess, put all my eggs in the social media basket. I want to figure out and learn how can I market myself and my business and services in a way that's not just solely on social media. Because a lot of what you see is people encouraging social media, which is great. It's important. It's wonderful that we have this option, but I do always have that underlying
Oh
anxiety
yeah.
about, I don't have complete control over it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. And you have lived experience of it, something going
Exactly.
wrong, right? Okay,
Mhm.
so there's so many questions I want to ask,
Yeah.
but I want to go back to that period of rapid growth that you experienced before. And what that was like what that felt like in terms of, I can imagine that there was probably this like rush of, oh, this thing I'm doing is like taking off and it's actually resonating with people and people are finding me and it's like, oh my gosh, like this is happening. But then
Yeah.
also coupled with that like stress and anxiety of then people's negative comments. Like it's such a double-edged sword.
Yes, that the double-edged sword is the best way to
Yeah.
describe it,
Ugh.
because that's exactly how it felt, especially if you're someone that has social anxieties anyways.
Mm.
There were definitely moments where I was in awe and like, I can't believe I am resonating with this many people, or this many people you want to hear what I have to say. Intellectually, I know that there are a lot of people with PCOS that are just happy to have someone who understands and relates. But it was really amazing to feel like, wow, like I can actually help people, and um, to feel a community to care as well.
Mm.
But yeah, it brought a lot of negativity. And it started like there was this moment where it was really exciting. I loved creating content. I was excited to create it. I was doing it all the time. But as the negativity started coming in more and more, I would notice that I would have a lot of anxiety about every single post,
Oh,
because
yeah.
now it's not just sharing a, fact about PCOS. Now it is, what can they find wrong with what I have to say? And, do I have a citation to back up what I have to say? Do I have this? Do I have that? Actually, in the process of that, I got so like cite your sources became like really popular during that time frame,
Mhm.
and I created what I call now the PCOS research database. I have over
Mm.
700 PCOS research articles that are
Wow.
organized in a Google Drive folder, because I was so exhausted with people expecting me just to hand over these research citations, like with every word that I said, that now I was finally
Oh,
like, it's all in there. You have the link. It's free. It's open 24/7. Just go there, because it was every single day, multiple times a day, and it boxed me in to this point of like, I don't even know what to talk about anymore, because
mm,
I don't know, like it's hard, and I still struggle with that. Like I don't want to say that it's some form of like PTSD, but I still
yeah.
struggle with
Oh,
that
sure.
apprehension about content, even with having a smaller Instagram and not dealing with that on a daily basis anymore. I overthink every post compared to
Mm,
just, I know a lot of people are like, just get it out there. And I'm like, I've done that before. And sometimes
yeah.
it's really hard, because I can't just get it out there. I have to back up everything, and I have to make sure I word it correctly. It's just, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot of thought for just a post, which can be really heavy sometimes.
Oh my God, so heavy
Yeah.
sometimes, for sure. And I think well, I know you're not alone there because I hear that from every other dietitian that I talk
Yeah.
to, that stress that
Especially
comes with
lately, we've
wanting
really
to,
seen
yeah,
a
right,
big change in,
right.
which I was just telling someone else this today. Nutrition is so personal to
Yeah,
everyone, and we just happen to have this field that touches everybody.
yeah.
Absolutely everyone. And some people have some really strong opinions and emotions about nutrition. And so,
Yeah.
even if you're, maybe you're sharing that something isn't, like, maybe not evidence based, like, hey, like there's no evidence to support such and such. People take that as like harsh criticism if that is
Mm,
what they enjoy or follow, and it's really hard to like protect yourself and come across and get your messaging across without upsetting people anymore.
yeah.
They can be really heavy and really challenging to navigate that.
And is there anything that you found helpful in terms of things you do to protect yourself, or is that sort of a constant challenge?
That's a good, there's definitely content that I don't touch, to protect myself. I know, for example, I call it call out content. I don't know what the term is, but like, calling out maybe other creators that are misinforming people. I will not touch that.
Mm,
I will not touch that. I have nothing against. I follow and support other creators who do that. I just know, for me personally, it would just bring me so much negativity that it would be very hard for me to function. So, I just do not do any content like that. There has been some content within my niche that gets a lot of emotional reactions, and so I still talk about them because I believe it's important to have that message, but it may be like once or twice a year. And when
mm,
I am mentally able to deal with it, when stress is a little bit lower, I'll talk about it. But there are definitely some things that I'm just not quite as open to discuss as I have been in the past. So yeah, those are some of the things. And I also am very good at taking breaks now.
mm,
I think before, like you had mentioned, like when you're growing and people want to hear what you have to say, you do feel some sense of obligation of like, I have to be here. I have to answer your messages. I want to be there to help you. I'm very good at being like, okay, I'm gonna take a week off here, or I'm gonna take this time here. If life gets a little chaotic and busy, I'm gonna log off. Where before I was not really good at
mm,
balancing that.
mm.
Mhm. Yeah.
And when your account was so large, were you getting approached to do things like brand work or like sponsored
Yeah,
content?
I get approached on a weekly basis.
Mm,
I'm you know, and this is probably something like as a future private practice dietitian, I need to be a little bit more mindful of, but I'm not a huge, like, I didn't really do a lot of partner branded content, and
hmm.
supplements is probably the biggest one. And I
Yeah.
think like just being, in the nutrition field, I don't trust a lot of, supplement companies. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And so I just have, a couple of brands that I've worked with really closely and I trust them and I just stick to them. I'm not going to just jump on to every other one, but there have been so many times I just, sometimes I don't even respond.
Mhm.
I just delete them and keep on going.
Yeah.
But I do know in the future, like, especially if there are brands that I feel very connected to and strongly about, I would be open to doing, partnerships and collaborations and things like that. I just haven't really done that much in the past. And I listen to a lot of what my niche says,
Hmm.
even if it's not directly on my account. And I also have had that fear of I don't want to do a lot of that kind of content because I don't want to come off as like inauthentic and disingenuous either. So that's a hard thing to balance, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, and how, like, what was the experience like of trying to turn an audience of that size into a business? Like all of a sudden showing up and being like, okay, like I'm now offering health coaching. Like, what was that like? Did you get like immediate bookings or was
Yeah.
it just sort of a, oh, interesting. Okay. So it was like
Yes.
kind of quick.
So I did, but I think that there's a caveat to that.
Mm,
So when I really went down that pipeline of what you see a lot of health coaches doing, and that someone loses weight and then they become a coach and they help other
mm,
people lose weight.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I know we've all seen it.
Yeah, of course.
So
Yeah.
I went through that, and weight loss is a really good business model. Like there's no shortage of people wanting your help to lose weight, especially if they saw you do it yourself. Honestly, I probably didn't even need to go out and do health coaching certs. Like I could have just done it, which we see people
Mm-hmm.
doing that too.
Totally. Yeah.
It's not ethical, but still, like, it was easier for me to do that because I was promoting, like,
Mm-hmm.
I was a weight loss coach, plain and
Mm-hmm.
simple. And I did what a lot of weight loss coaches did. I posted transformation pictures of my clients and showed them how I could help them and so on. Um, I don't know if it was about a year or so after I started coaching and I really was leaning more into the PCOS side of things. I was kind of reluctant to do it because I felt like, oh, there's lots of PCOS coaches and like they don't need me, but I just kept getting pulled into that direction and I stopped resisting. And then I started kind of realizing that weight loss was not like the solution for everyone. And I was watching I could get my clients to lose weight, but to help them be sustainable was a different story. So it was
Mm-hmm.
like what we see a lot of times, like as soon as they stopped working with me, they would regain the weight. And I did a lot of self-reflection and I kind of felt like I was part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I got more involved in PCOS advocacy, where I learned more about the weight bias and weight stigma. And I just couldn't continue being a weight loss coach the more I learned. And that is when I think it kind of became harder because it like I stopped sharing before and after photos. So it became hard to give social proof of how I could help people, improve their PCOS and change their lifestyle habits and reduce their risk of health conditions down the road that didn't sell. It's not as sexy as getting you to lose 20 pounds in a few months. That's whenever I really was like, okay, like this is a lot harder. And I think that's whenever I really started like thinking about marketing, what that looks like, and so on. So that was more challenging than going from sharing my journey to being a weight loss coach.
Mm-hmm. I just want to say, like, what an incredible journey. Like, what a beautiful, incredible journey. And thank you so much for your transparent. Like, I still have questions for you, but like, I just want to say thank you for your transparency in this because, like, I just feel like so many dietitians can learn so much from the journey that you've been on. And like, I just feel like there's been so, like, I think all of these things are only going to make you so much better at being a dietitian because you've seen every side of the coin, which is like, oh my God. Like, and you've lived through this stuff and you've seen the other side of it. And it's just so incredible. And I'm just so inspired by you. So I just want to
Oh,
say that.
thank you. Thank
It's
you.
just
Yeah.
so fascinating. Um, okay. So what is different in terms of growing your audience now? Because how many followers do you have approximately on Instagram?
I'm like at 8,500 now. So I'm
Okay.
still under
Yeah.
the 10K mark. For some reason in my mind it doesn't feel official until you hit the
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 like five,
10K.
whatever, five figures.
Um, but yeah, it is different trying to figure out how to grow
Yeah. Well, and how has
brand.
it been different? Like I feel like I think that's something I've heard and has been echoed across a lot of people is just like the difference in having posted content like 8 years ago or something
Yeah.
like that and seeing how that brings people in versus
Hmm.
posting stuff now. And just like it's a different landscape. It's not as easy to like get traction or to grow. Has that been
No,
your
that
experience?
yeah, I definitely like it is even with the kind of content that I have, I feel like it would have been so much easier 10 years ago, 8 years, maybe even 5 years ago. And of course, like now we're all experiencing like people want video based
Mm,
content. It's not just, I remember when all of us were just doing Canva infographics and that was doing great.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah, and then also like the attention spans are a lot shorter, and I am notorious about, and I think I'm this way because like especially people with PCOS, you rarely seldomly get educated in your doctor's office. And so I'm just like, oh, like I really want to explain this to you or help you understand this or whatever the case is. And we're falling into this attention span where people don't want to go through carousel slide after carousel slide and like
Mm,
so it's just it has been really hard to navigate. I also feel like we're in a space where you have to hook them in within that like first couple of seconds. So, whatever it is, it has to almost be, I don't know if clickbait is the right word for
mm,
it, but
mm-hmm.
it's really hard. Like if you're just talking about some boring nutrition stuff, you got to find a
Yeah.
way to make it exciting or catch people's attention. And that was just I feel like we used to just be able to get on and just talk, and that is not the case anymore. Something I miss, and that I've also noticed, and I'm trying to get that back with my audience now that it's smaller. It's really hard to feel connected to my audience compared
Mm.
to what it used to feel like.
Oh,
Even when
interesting.
I've had a larger audience, it was just so people used to comment even just to just engage with you. Now people don't
Mm.
comment unless they disagree with you.
So true, eh? Oh,
So
that's
I like,
interesting.
even with having, 8,500 people, you would think that I would feel so much more connected compared to 38,000 people. But I've really struggled with that. So I've actually started, just people, if I notice, someone's engaging with my content, I've been just reaching out to them in the DMs because I was like, I don't feel connected to
Yeah.
to people anymore. And I think from a business standpoint, we have to be connected with our audience and leads because like why else would they want help from us? So that and growing is really different than where it was in the past.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's so fascinating. And I feel like I find that too. And I mean, we have a small audience. I mean, in the niche of dietitians, like, small little audience, but I find the same thing. It seems like it's harder than ever to, yeah, just kind of like break through the noise and just truly, yeah, connect. Be like, no, 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 no. Like, I actually want to hear from you. Like I actually want to have a conversation with you. I
Yeah.
actually want to talk about this topic with you. even if I've never met you. Like I want to do that. And I agree, like it can feel like a real echo chamber where you're just putting stuff out there into the world and you're like, hello, anybody there? This
I
is
know. And I
hard.
think which call to actions are really important.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're all using them, but sometimes it's like, has our audience got desensitized? Like,
Mm-hmm. I think
it
so.
is really hard to get someone to, comment or again, unless they disagree. And usually, like, those aren't the kind of conversations I want to entertain all the time. Like I
Mm-hmm.
want to just give you support, and or even just know that, like, hey, like, this really helped you, and things like that. Something else I've noticed recently in my content is like, people don't really have to like your post or follow you anymore for you to continuously show up for them. So I
So
don't know if
true.
that's something that, like when we were talking about growing, if as long as they see your content and I guess look at it for X amount of seconds, they're gonna keep it's gonna keep getting pushed to them. So where's the initiative to follow? That's a
Mm-hmm.
lot different than where it was. And I will have people will save my content way more than they will like it.
Mm.
They
Oh
will
yeah.
they Yeah, like they will save. I have more saved usually than I do anything, which is great. I'm glad that people are, but I've just noticed, like, that's really different from what it's been in the past, for sure.
I think you're so right. I just recorded a podcast episode about this a few weeks ago about how like the metric of success now is not number of followers, it's things like saves and shares, right? It's like
Yeah.
that really shows how somebody felt about your content, right? Like, because you're right. I mean, and I think about my own behavior. Like I'm scrolling through my feed and I don't necessarily like double click on something to like it, even though I liked it. Like I would have read through
Mhm.
it and I'm like, I didn't necessarily engage with it. Like, and that's how everyone is, I think, nowadays. It's just,
Yeah.
it's so different. But also to your point around also why it's so important to diversify your marketing too beyond just I know obviously we're talking a lot about social media right now because it's fascinating, but
Mhm.
it's like okay, but like how else are we building meaningful connections with people that is not just social media? Because you're right, it's fickle and it's harder than ever to create meaningful connections. So it's like that's what we need is some way to build those meaningful
I
connections.
know. I really have thought, like, especially in my space, the PCOS space of like, community is like really important. Like, we need that because a lot of us don't have that support
Mm-hmm.
and strength in our daily lives. And I've had this conversation with some other advocates of, like, we're all seeing that we're missing that. And like, used to online forums or like groups, they kind of started becoming, I don't know if toxic is the best word, but
Mm-hmm.
they kind of
Mm-hmm.
became an echo chamber of negativity. And
Mm-hmm.
so people started shying away from that. And then now our social media platforms where we used to connect, like, people aren't connecting as much anymore. And so it's really concerning, which I know social media is going to evolve, and we're going to, notice things are changing and trends are changing. But it really, lately, I feel like there's a huge disconnect in getting us connected, even for those of us that just need support too. Hopefully that changes and we can figure out a way to move the needle for that. But I think showing up and doing something that you had done initially, whenever I first started following, was reached out with just like a really quick video, like,
Mm-hmm.
chat message.
Mm-hmm.
That meant the world to me. Like, that was like,
Mm-hmm.
you had my loyalty from then, because I was like, she really stopped in the middle of her day to just shoot me a quick message. And like you said, like, that let me know that you really wanted to hear from me. And so I think that maybe going back to some of our old, just chatting with each
Mm-hmm.
other methods are what we're going to have to start reverting to really get connected with our audiences.
Well, and I think too, like, so to that point, like one of the things that we do is when we get a new member and they put their Instagram handle in their checkout form, we send them
Mhm.
a video message on Instagram to say, like, hi, like, so great
Yeah.
to meet you and have you as a part of our community. And I agree with you that I think there needs to be a resurgence in that, like, how do we maybe take those techniques that are not like scalable necessarily. There's like time that has to go into each one of those messages, but it's meaningful. It's all about those meaningful connections. And I think that there's going to be a resurgence in like in person, the desire for in person things,
Yeah.
meetups, in person groups, in person conferences, like that sort of thing too, because I think we're all in a post COVID world. I think we're all kind of like desperate for that, honestly.
I really think so too.
Yeah.
Like, I think that that is something that we're going to see. I don't think social media is going to go anywhere, but
No, agreed.
I just definitely think people, and especially even in social media in an AI world where people are just generating
Mm,
out,
so
I'm not saying
true.
that that's a bad thing. Like, I think AI
Yeah.
has been so helpful, but content is nowhere near as personable as it used to
Mm,
be in some senses for a lot of people. And so just getting back to just being humans again and connecting, I think a lot of
yeah.
people are craving that. Mhm.
Yes, I could not agree more. Okay, so what's next for your business? What do you see in the future?
I think so. Right now, it's all just planning and creating the foundation and stepping stones for running a private practice. So, I'm an intern with Complete Business Dietetic Internship, which was the only internship I've ever heard of that focuses on business and like private practice. And I stopped health coaching. Like, I had, got my client list down to zero because I wanted to take this time to really soak everything in with my internship. And then also because I had like a good 5 years of being a health coach and realizing there's a lot of stuff I didn't know, like maybe like bookkeeping and
Hmm.
taxes and all of that business stuff that nobody really teaches you unless you go into business. um I'm laying the foundation now and planning for launching the full private practice next summer. And I really came into diet like I knew that I wanted to be a private practice dietitian, like coming into dietetics. So, where a lot of students or even interns still aren't sure, I knew private practice was going to be where I ended up. And I also knew that I didn't want to be by myself. And so something in the PCOS space that we often share is like you kind of have to build your healthcare team because it's such a complex condition.
Hmm.
It requires a bunch of different professionals. You have to build this team, and people are struggling even to find one healthcare team member. So my goal is to use my private practice as a platform to build that team for people.
Hmm.
And so I've been collaborating with nurse practitioners and mental health therapists and just trying to figure out how can I create this healthcare team and then provide these services, telehealth, so that I can increase access to care and start helping people and giving them that team that's already pre-built in for them. So that is my goal with Endocrine Collective. And then I also want to be able to branch out to other hormone related conditions beyond PCOS with that as well.
Oh, wow. So incredible and so inspiring. I'm just so excited to see all of the amazing things that you
Thank
do.
you. Some days it
Yeah.
really just feels like a pipe dream of like,
No, no,
you
I
know,
see this. I
and then
see
I'm
this
sure
happening
everybody
for
goes through
you.
that. And then there's some days of like, okay, I'm actually doing this. Like,
Yeah, you are actually doing this. Like you're doing it every single day. You're making it
yeah,
come to
yeah.
life. So
Mm.
thank you so much for your time today. And again,
Thank you
thank
for
you for
having
your
me.
openness. I know so many dietitians are going to learn so much from your story. So you're
Well, thank
amazing. And
you.
I just appreciate you.
I appreciate you for having me here and everything that you've offered for support. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, of course. And where can the audience find you online?
Instagram at Endocrine Collective. That's my home base. That's where I will be. So you can definitely find me there.
Okay, amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.